What is up, everybody? It is the ThePandaSupreme, and I'm going to be doing a rant/review on the anime Bokurano. And I already suggest that you do not watch the show at all, because it is an atrocity. And if you, there's going to be full spoilers. So if you don't care about spoilers, and if you've seen the show, then yeah, let's talk about this. If you want to see the show, go watch it and come back, and you can listen to my points to see if you agree. But let's just get started on this, because, oh my gosh, this show it's painful. It is. And if you don't know anything about the show, basically the story is focused around 15 kids. 15! Not lying. 15 kids who are put into a cave. They basically walk into a cave, and this old man tells them that they can play a game where they get to, like, battle, like, mechs. And they go like, okay. And then it's actually a real mech. And they have to battle real mechs. And the twist! There's a twist in the show that actually was done well for the first person. And the thing is, the twist in the show is shock factor, okay? There's shock factor. And the shock factor is only good for the first kid. And then it's not shock factor anymore after the first kid. So you're kind of getting my point here on that. When you watch the show, you're just like, okay, the first kid, holy shit. I'm going to tell you right now, the kid dies. Because the mech runs on life force, okay? So when a kid pilots the mech, he dies. This worked for the first kid. I was surprised. I was like, damn, motherfucker, he died. Like, I was like, holy shit, that was unexpected, because I was honestly bored of this anime in the first, like, couple episodes. Like the first episode or whatever, and then the second episode came, and I was like, holy shit, he died. That was surprising. It was really surprising, actually. And then and I was engaged, and I was like, how are they gonna play on this? Because then they had a funeral and everything for him, and I was like, holy shit, this could get deep with these kids and everything. And then it happened again with the second kid, because the kids didn't know that this happened, and I was just like, okay. And I wasn't feeling anything, and they didn't even have a funeral for the second kid. They didn't have anything for the second kid. It was fucking retarded. But I'm gonna get into like some good points on this. So there was points in the show where there's plot conveniences, and basically there's some plot conveniences where you have a kid basically have problems in life. So they basically have a sob story for every character, and there's these different things where this one kid thought that his father was basically the king of the world and he will never die. And then when he's battling in the mech, he falls over in the mech and he squashes some cars. When he looks up and he sees the cars that he basically squashed, he looks, and his father was one of the ones in the car right underneath him. And I'm just like, that is the most biggest plot convenience I've ever seen in a fucking anime. Holy shit. Like, and I was gonna let that go, okay? You know, I was like, one plot convenience in this anime, whatever. But there's even a plot convenience for this anime when a kid doesn't get enough development, okay? It's like, I was just like, what? Like, it was point in anime where this kid basically, he didn't get enough basically plot like development or anything on him for a backstory or anything. So what happened was the mech basically committed suicide. Like, his enemy mech committed suicide. And I was just like, that is the first time that's ever happened. And it only happened when a kid didn't get enough development. And I mean, none of the kids get enough development, but he didn't even get a backstory. So they're just like, oh man, how are we going to rectify this one? And they basically had his enemy mech do a suicide, which is convenient because also his mother was committing suicide. And I would get in that probably in another part of this, because it will go into the whole relationship with the parents, which I fucking hate. So kids will react to death. In certain situations, they will get all weepy and shit, okay? They were like, really start breaking down and be like, holy shit, my best friend died. But then they will just switch automatically back to kids, and they will be like, let's go play. Let's go to our friend's house and we can all hang out together. Let's do this. And then immediately, like in another scene, like in the next scene or whatever, they will immediately go and be like, oh my gosh, we're gonna die. We're gonna die. And then the next part, someone will die, they will see it, and then they will just act like nothing happened, and then there'll be kids again. And I'm just like, mind blown on how bad that writing was. I mean, the kid stuff wasn't even that bad compared to other things in this show, but overall, like, I was like, holy shit, this show is just like, I don't even know what it wants to do, and it was just so like bad. And even when you get like some moments where these kids are just freaking out and shit, you don't get anything with it. Like, kids never go talk to their parents. Even in the show, the parents don't even know their kids are dying. Okay, and I understand this for one thing. It's just like, you're not gonna understand that kids are in a mech, but if you're in a class with some kids or whatever, in a group or whatever, and then around maybe like 5 kids die, you kind of expect that maybe there's something up. Maybe there's something up in this group of kids that you need to kind of look after for a parent or whatever, and maybe worry about your kid. That'd be nice. Or maybe, when the kid dies, maybe show the family aspect and see how the family reacts to this shit, instead of just having the kid die and then the kid disappears and you never see the kid again. And you're just like, what about the family? What happened to the family? We got a little bit backstory on the whole family aspect and shit, and then you don't do anything with the family afterwards to see what's going on. Like, for all I know, the fucking family doesn't even give a shit. Like, or the family's just literally heartbroken. None of the kids care. Like, really is kind of weird on how they do that. Even when the parents do find out that the kids are piloting the mechs, it doesn't really benefit the show at all. And I mean, you get around, I'm gonna say, 2 family aspects in this where the parents actually give a shit about their kid, and they're just like, oh my gosh, my kid's gonna die in this mech, and I am deeply saddened that my kid's gonna die in this mech, and we can do nothing about it. The other parents are just like, my kid's gonna die in this mech, I have other life problems, and I'm gonna deal with that. But yeah, my kid's over there basically having a psychological meltdown at some points in the show, and you don't give a shit about him. And what I'm talking about here is the most evident aspect of the show is the freaking kid that I talked about with the suicide. Basically, his mother tried to commit suicide, and you would think that it would be because the son is going to die, okay? And that he's the only person in her life. No, that is not why she did it. The reason that she tried to commit suicide was because she couldn't find a job. That is why she tried to commit suicide in the show. And I was just like, wow, you had a part in the show that actually could have meant something to the kid, and actually could have really been like a real fucked up thing for the kid, It's pretty fucked up that the mom didn't give a shit anyways, but also that, like, you could have had a great aspect with that, but instead, the kid explains that my mom doesn't have a job, and basically she told me that's why she committed suicide. And she actually never even talks about me being in the mech, because she knows I'm in the mech. She knows that I'm riding this mech. I'm going to die, because I'm the one that's chosen to die. And when she gets a job, because she gets a job in about, like, the next 2 seconds in the anime, she basically is on her feet again. She's happy. She's wearing makeup. She's talking to everybody. And her kid's standing there, and he's just like hopeless, because he's going to fucking die. And she doesn't give a shit. She acts like everything's fine. Like, I'm just like, who wrote this to fucking do this? Like, who in their right mind thinks a parent would not give a shit that their kid's gonna fucking die, and then they're just gonna do this shit over and over again? And it's not, like, I'm going on and on about this part of the show, but this is the overarching part of the whole show. Like, that's the only thing. The only thing that happens in the show is backstory on kid, next episode he dies. Or it's backstory on kid, in the next episode, like, or the same episode, that kid dies. And that happens over and over and over again until we're down to 1 kid. And that, again, you have 15 kids. It's it's the same thing over and over and over again. And they try, and it's really slow. It's really slow. And I was ready for the show to be over around, like, episode 13. The whole thing, they even tried to add another aspect of the show about the government and what the government would do with politics, and how they would reinforce this into basically their own, like, armies and stuff, and how they could use these mechs and stuff. And it really was horrible. Like, the politics really were boring. You don't know any of these characters. You don't give a shit about, like, any of the government stuff that goes on in the show, and the writing for it is horrible. And I don't really, like, know, like, they would be talking about politics and how they wanted to use this mech, and it would be the same conversation every time. Or it'd be like, because they have to reiterate every time. There's like, we want to help these kids, we want to help these kids, we want to help these kids. And no one would listen. And I guess they're doing, I guess they're just showing how like the government doesn't give a shit about the kids. But then eventually they do give a shit about the kids, and I'm just like, what the fuck is going on here? So some parents on the show, I'd have to say, make sense on why they don't give a shit about their kids. Like the basically government worker girl who just basically is stuck in her work and doesn't give a shit about her kid at all and just wants to use the mech for her own purposes. I understood why she didn't give a shit about her kid. But every other parent in the show was basically just like a regular parent. So, yeah, all the parents are pretty shitty, except like 2 of them, which actually, you know, did show a little bit of sign of remorse and basically sadness that their kid was gonna die. They even added in some mafia stuff in this show, which I thought was worse than the freaking government stuff, because the mafia stuff, it wasn't in there that much, but when they did add it in there, you didn't know any of the characters. They just kind of threw in some characters, they threw in some plot conveniences, and I personally did not give 2 shits about that, like, at all. Like, it really did not bring anything new to the show. All it did was just basically slow the show down and have also bad writing. And, I mean, I got the backstory for the mafia stuff. I personally didn't care, because one thing is, it's characters that you don't care about. It's about kids that you don't care about. It's about, like, the adult life of the mother that you do not care about prematurely dies in the show. They have a plot thing for the mother in the show, for this mother that's basically a government woman, and she dies in the middle of her plot. And then they act like it was good when it wasn't. It wasn't good. Like, it was like, they even in the episode, they basically made the character different. She acted out of character because she was gonna die that episode, so they had to basically act like she was just like, like she was just like, oh my gosh, I need to like take care of my kids and everything. When before she was like a badass like military woman who like subtly did things, and then she suddenly acts motherly out of nowhere, and I was just like, okay, like if that's what we're doing here, that's what we're doing here. It's so hard to talk about this show because the writing was so bad. It was kind of this jumbled up mess the whole time for me. And again, they added some backstory on these different parts of the show where there was reasons behind why the mechs were fighting, and they even added in multiple universes. The multiple universes didn't add anything to the show either, because all it did was kind of reinforce what was already happening. There was this points where they added in like this whole thing about there's another worldly force out there, like basically this is called this like Earth Prime, basically uses these mechs to suck out energy from other planets, so then they can have energy for themselves. They basically take souls from the kids, and they also, when the other planets try to use this code for the mechs, they basically use all their energy, and then they send it to the other Earth. And it is the most backwards ass fucking plan that I can understand why this freaking Earth Prime would do this shit. For one thing is, why are you doing this backward ass motherfucking thing to build this fucking mech, then send it off to a planet to fight, then when you have these codes that use for the other thing, that you have no chance to know if the other planets are actually going to know the codes and actually use them, you just wait for them to use this code, and then they send the thing there, and it's the most backwards ass plan. Like, it's just like, why don't you go to the planet and use it yourself, and then you can just send the like all that power to your planet? Why do you have to have this backwards ass plan where the other planet does it for themselves? Like, and then you don't even know what they're gonna do it. Like, it's really weird. Like, I'm just like, what is that? Like, why is that? Why? What? I don't. And it's so weird. They showed like the other planet people were like all dressed in white, sitting like they're like the high fancy like ass motherfuckers sitting in this chair, and I'm just like, what are these motherfuckers doing? Like, I don't even know. It's so weird. It's really weird how they do this show. They did try to have a like main kid in the show, like a main kid for like the other kids in the show, and he was a dick for one thing. Like, he would punch his sister and kick her and shit because he had a hard life, and I wasn't liking that, but he did learn at the end, I guess. that he shouldn't have been doing that. It was okay. I mean, there's nothing much to say on him at all, except that basically he learned that he should live life for the better, that he shouldn't take everything like, you know, he shouldn't take everything hard way and shit. And like, because the ending was bad. Like, the ending was like, it was the kid basically going out, and he fought in a mech. He was the last kid, okay? And he fought in the mech to basically fight for 30 hours. And it was like the most premature, like, the fights in this anime fucking suck. Like, I watched the show and I'm just like, this mech fight is horrible. Like, these mech fights aren't cool at all. They're just punch, 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 we're done. And it's literally about 3 punches and they're done in the show. And I could be okay with this. I could be okay with the mech fights being bad or, like, not that good if they had a good character story for the kids and shit and stuff like that. But no, the writing's horrible, the kid stuff is bad, the government stuff is bad, the mafia stuff is bad, and on top of that, the freaking mech fights are bad. And they even had like they acted like the last fight was like the best fight ever. They're just like, a good way to end the last fight is to have a 30-hour battle. And I'm just like, motherfucker, what are you talking about? This shit sucks. They even had a part where they took breaks. Like, the other mech on the other side, the enemy mech, would take a break, and then he would take a break at the same time and eat food. I'm just like, if that mech over there is taking a break, you go over there and you punch that motherfucker in the face and you end the fucking battle. Like, what are you both doing here taking breaks? Like, it was weird. Like, I was like, why would you both take a break at the same time if you both could just, like, if one takes a break, you could easily just, like, take that motherfucker and just punch him in the goddamn face. Like, I don't know what they were trying to do there with that. If they're just like, he even brought food with him and stuff. Like, he's like, I got my food with me and everything. I'm just like, they even had some, like, different backstories on basically the Dung Beetle character, which was, like, not needed at all. Like, it was weird. I mean, the backstory was there, and they didn't have to waste, like, a whole episode on a backstory for Dung Beetle and the sister character for Dung Beetle, because, I mean, it doesn't add anything to what the show, to the kids. It doesn't add anything to the kids at all. Like, it was just basically backstory, like, a whole episode of backstory for why the mech thing is there. And I'm just like, you could have condensed that down plenty to not have a whole fucking backstory of that whole shit. But I did like when Dung Beetle got shot to death by his sister, because there's some points in the show where the animation is actually pretty good. You know, it's like, the animation sometimes actually rises up to the occasion and actually looks pretty damn good. The best part was probably when he got shot to death, and I was just like, holy shit, that animation for when he got shot to death was pretty damn good. And I was actually happy. And it's not really a spoiler that he died, because he is nothing of a character. He is basically, if you've seen Madoka Magica, I mean, obviously he's before Madoka Magica, but just think about Kyubey from Madoka Magica, and just think about a dick version of Kyubey from Madoka Magica, and that's basically Dung Beetle. So, yeah. I mean, he's basically nothing much of a character. He's more just like, I'm here to basically fuck up your life and do shit that I want to do, because I'm a little asshole. And that's all his character is. I mean, he doesn't really get much. It doesn't really get any closure. He just kind of dies. And I'm happy when he dies. I'm just like, hell yeah, you fucking suck. The end of the battle with the mechs and stuff when he was fighting the last kid, basically they had callbacks to all the kids that fought in this battle and everything that happened. And it was so boring to watch, because one thing is, you don't give a shit about any of the kids in the show, and because they don't ever focus on any of the kids. It's like, they have development for the kids, the backstories, and then they die, okay? But they don't do anything with the kids before that. Like, they don't even talk. Some of the kids don't even talk until it's time for them to die. And I'm just like, mind blown. Why don't you do anything with these kids? So then once you get to the last episode and they have these callbacks for the kids, when the last kid's fighting, and he basically remembers all the kids, and he's just like, I'm fighting for all you and everything. I'm just like, I don't care. You aren't nothing. You are nothing to me. You kids are nothing. You're just sacks of fat. And you just basically are there for melodrama so you can die and I can feel sorry for you when I don't feel sorry for you. And I like it's like melodrama. We're gonna kill kids off for just like whatever the animation, and I'm just like, okay. The ending was like it just kind of ended like the ending was it was just like the sister of the kid basically was there, and they had an inconsistency with some of the subtitles. I don't know if it was actually it was the writing, because they said, because Down Beetle said that the little sister basically had to ride the mech the last time to fight to survive, so then she could survive, and because there was one mech coming and they needed a 15th, or they needed a 16th battle or something like that. But then after he died, basically that didn't need to be anymore. But then they called back again and they said that she needed to fight, and that's why she didn't go with her brother in the last battle. And then she didn't have to fight. So it was very weird. It was like toss back of different ideas in the show that I think they wanted to do, and then they just didn't do it. I guess they just wanted the end of the show, but it was fine. I mean, the ending was just like, it was the callback to the community that they had, a small community, and how life, and I guess they wanted to end off the show like, life happens the way it does, and we're not, because they didn't go back to the creators of the, basically the mechs and stuff, which I thought they were going to do, because they introduced it for some reason. They didn't do anything with it, and then they're just like, I guess they're going on about how life is the way it is, and sometimes you cannot change it no matter what, and there's a set path that you have to do, and like destiny, like there's a destiny and there's fate, and sometimes you cannot escape fate. So I guess that's what they were trying to do with the show, but it was just done very badly. There was some closure, I guess, if you cared about the Indian boy in the show. Basically, he was taking care of his brothers and sisters, and then he set his brothers and sisters off on a bus, and then he went and he fought on the mech and he died. And we never got any closure about the kids and what they thought, because it was probably one of the better, well-done backstories in the show. Then you got closure at the end about the kids and how they both know about their brother in the mech, and how they now know that he died for the good of humanity and shit. And then it kind of just ended right there. And it was the most boring ending I think I've like ever seen, where like you don't give a shit about any of these characters in the show at all. And like, I don't know, it just ended. Like, you can't say anything positive about the show, because they really don't do anything positive at all. I literally tried to think about one thing they did positive, besides like the backstories had a little bit of thought into it, and that was about it. And the animation at some points was like really good, and that's about all I can say about the show that was good. And because I mean, the writing was bad, the stuff with the parents was bad, the stuff with the kid was bad, the stuff with the government stuff was bad, the stuff with the mafia stuff was bad, and the mech fights were bad. And like, that's basically the crux of the show, is all that stuff I just mentioned there, because they just added that all in there, and it's just bad. And I just don't understand how they could write this show this bad, and how they could just like do all this stuff that bad. It was it was just that bad, because I heard some great things about the show, because I was like Bokurano or whatever, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna check out this anime, and it was just horrible. So I honestly, and that's being generous for this show, basically, because the show didn't look bad at all. The animation was fine, it was smooth, and the art was eh. It was eh. I mean, it wasn't really anything special. It wasn't that time period of like anime that I actually thought that back when animation I thought was really great, and the art style was really great. So and also the backstories were like okay, but they didn't really lead to anything, and it just kind of sucked overall. So tell me what you guys think of this anime. I fucking hated it. I honestly just I liked when Dun Beetle died, but that's about it. So yeah, I went on for a little long there, but tell me what you guys think, and I'll talk to you guys later.